So I want to show you guys this for a couple of different reasons. We definitely are in a market where there's a lot of people who are aware of this, but the scary thing is I think there's a lot of people who aren't. Now, granted, this is here in Orange County, this graph that I'm using. However, this same graph pretty much across the entire country is very much the same. And what this is showing is our actual closed transactions, what we are seeing in regard to closed transactions. We are definitely gearing up for what's going to be one of the slowest quarter fours that we have ever seen. And that is something that people need to be brutally honest with themselves for to see if they're prepared for it. Because one of my biggest fears are what most people do when we first get started in real estate, or we're newer to real estate and we haven't experienced anything like this, is there is going to be far fewer transactions simply due to affordability, but most importantly, just for what's going to happen seasonally and what's cyclically built into our housing season. And as we start going into, for us, it's always right in the middle of August. We end up going from middle of August to September to October to November. We start seeing a substantial decrease in the demand. And that is because we go into the holiday season and people don't want to move. But in addition to this, our affordability is by far one of the lowest points that we have ever seen. When you look at the average income to one of the average local income for us here in OC, and again, all of this applies pretty much nationally, but the data that we have is the average household income is having to apply. They would have to. One, you could never get a mortgage this way. But if you wanted to buy an average price or median priced home, 72% of your income would have to be contributed towards your mortgage, which one, you ain't ever going to qualify for that, which is why we have such insanely low demand right now. But fortunately, our low demand is also being met with very limited inventory. So muted inventory with muted demand. If the inventory is even more muted than the demand, we're still seeing upward pressure on pricing, which is what we're seeing. But what I'm trying to get all of our agents very cognizant of is if you want to affect your third quarter, can you really affect it starting today? And the answer for most people is no. If you really started prospecting, and if you really started being intentional with leads, or you really started being intentional with any type of lead generation, your ability to affect your third quarter is minimal. The efforts that we are putting forth today is to affect our fourth quarter and our first quarter, because one, we know that people are going to be dealing with just the typical slowdown that we're going to experience in this season. But even more importantly, and what I want people to be unbelievably aware of, we have built-in objections that are coming in our way. And those built-in objections are one, yes, we've got affordability. Yes, we've got interest rates. Yes, we've got the housing market's going to fall apart and I'm terrified of the economy. But now peppered in with this is going to be, well, we're going to wait until after the holidays. And now peppered into that, we have the one objection that happens every 4 years that, well, I'm going to wait and I'm going to see what happens with the elections, which we all know has very little impact on the housing market ever, regardless of who's in office. But we are automatically going to have these objections and these excuses that our buyers make to be on the fence and to not take this seriously and to not get into the market in an aggressive manner. And I really just want to make sure more than anything that agents have the ability to, one, identify who's still motivated, two, identify who is deserving of their time and their attention, and making sure that we have the ability to ask questions and follow a process that is, one, going to get us to a point where people want to set up appointments with us and submit offers. But two, when we show up and when we do it, making sure that we show up in a way that's going to make clients actually want to work with us. Because being a great agent, we know is one, we always have to be filling our pipeline with leads. Two, we need to make sure that we know how to handle objections and how to nurture people properly to get them to the point where they're ready to transact. And then three, when we show up for that appointment, how do you show up? How do you prepare? And what's funny is I've been having to deal with a lot of different real estate agents because I'm figuring out stuff and about moving into a new area. I had to talk to a bunch of agents and I knew I wasn't going to transact with any of them. Literally, Dave Z's sitting on this call. He's going to be the guy that I end up using. But I see all these different approaches that realtors are doing, and I'm having fun with it because you can see the absolute garbage that you're competing against. And two, you really get excited for when you identify somebody who is doing it and they're doing it well. So we're going to talk about one, most importantly, how this is the one thing that is scary. And you guys have seen the statistics. I think it was 23,000 agents have already dipped out of the business in 2023. That number is going to dramatically get harder. And we know that number is going to dramatically increase as we start moving into the year. And what's the most important for us is what do we have to do today that's going to keep us ahead of this so that we can stay in? And for a lot of people, it's already up to 60. Oh, that's Jesus Christ. Is it already up to 60,000? Okay, not 23,000, 60,000. It's astronomical. And right now, a lot of people, it's not going to be, by the look at that graph, and you can see we're already gearing for one of the slowest sales seasons that we've seen. For a lot of people, it's just a matter of making the decision. Am I going to sink the ship, or am I going to do what I need to do to stay afloat? Because right now we are in planting season. Like there are seasons of the market, and there's seasons when we get to harvest, and there's seasons when we're planting. There's just different seasons to this. And this is going to be, for a lot of people, the season that we just have to be planting the seeds. Because one, affordability is a huge issue. Hopefully rates come down soon, but those rates are going to make the market even more competitive, because the first thing that's going to happen is when rates drop, buyer demand is going to come up and gobble up the already decimated inventory levels that we have. And it's going to take sellers a lot of time to be able to bridge that gap for affordability. And people just keep talking about rates. Like rates are the reasons that sellers aren't putting their homes on the market. You could be somebody who bought and had a 5 to a 6%, which is not a big percentage that do, but they still wouldn't move because the affordability levels are still so astronomically out of line because of the interest rates and the home prices and the average income. The interest rates and the home values have dramatically outpaced people's incomes. So until something happens, that's going to be the lagging indicator on this. So timing, really, please, more than anything, this is just kind of prepare people. Be ready. Start planting those seeds today. Start making those calls today. Start doing those efforts today, because the people who wait until October and November to start, their fourth quarter is already fucked. There's no ability to change or adjust the trajectory of your fourth quarter if you get into November and you get into December or even in October. So pay attention to that. But I'm going to just skip on to the normal part of this. Like our main focus more than anything to be a really successful agent with buyers today is, and I'm going to start from the very beginning. And for many of us, this is going to be basic, so forgive me. But the successful formula for real estate is insanely simple. Have conversations, set appointments, meet appointments, execute contracts, open escrow, close escrow. That's the formula. How you have those conversations, how you generate those, how you set your appointments. It's different for everybody. Some it's online leads, some it's open houses, some it's sphere of influence, some of it's past clients and referrals. But however you do it, the only way to mitigate against this declining market in sales, our home values, by the way, none of this means home values are dropping. We have our home values right now are increasing by about 2.25% per month. So it doesn't necessarily mean that values are going to be dropping, but how do you mitigate against the decline in sales that, one, is going to be built in due to the affordability issues, and two, how do we mitigate against and give ourselves a cushion to protect against the inevitability that we are going to have a slower season just because it's built into the holidays? So the only way to do it is you have more conversations, you set more appointments. My buddy Kyle Whistle did a post yesterday and I loved it because it's just so spot on. If you're making more social media posts and you are having conversations and setting appointments with people, you're doing it wrong. And it's true, because we're always looking for the easy button, but the reality of it is the only way for us to truly be able to generate business in a meaningful way is to have more conversations with people, plant more seeds, be able to identify the motivated, ask great questions, set appointments with them, show up in a way that's going to earn you their business and that's going to magnetize you so that they want to chase you as opposed to you chasing them. Like, it's a simple process, but not enough agents are being intentional with it. And the thing that I firmly believe that we have to do is track the things that matter. Like in our office, we utilize a system called Sisu. Some people use CTE. But your ability to track your conversations that you're having. I don't care. By the way, I see agents all the time. They're like, well, I'm going to have 100 phone calls today. If you make 100 phone calls today and you talk to 0 people, you don't get to pat yourself on the back because you did nothing to move your business in the right direction. Conversations. Yeah, those are much better than tracking phone calls. But even conversations, if you suck at setting appointments and you're not getting any appointments, you're still not progressing your business in the right direction. So the real only thing that I really want people to focus on and commit to is setting appointments. And the reason for this is when when we run appointment challenges in our office, guess what? Our appointments skyrocket, because now the daily intention with every single call and conversation that they make is trying to actually secure that appointment and tie it down. And when that's your direct intention, you'll be more focused on actually setting appointments with people, whether that be for strategy sessions, whether that be for buyer consult, same thing, strategy sessions, whether that be for buyer pre-approval, whether that be for going and touring properties. However you do it, my main focus and the only KPI that I really give a shit about is how many appointments are you setting? And the reason that I think it's so incredibly important to track the conversations and the appointments met, the metric that I'm going to give you next is by far the most important. And it's, I think, probably one of the most underutilized. When you meet with somebody, what percentage of those people are choosing to meet with you again? Because if you get online leads, or if you get a referral from somebody, and let's say Dave Z takes my phone call, I call Dave, he's a listing agent on this house I'm looking at in Arizona. And I say, hey, Dave, I want to see this house tomorrow at 2:00. Dave didn't do shit to pat himself on the back yet. What really is going to be the metric that he gets to pay attention to get excited about is what percentages of those people that you met for the very first time, how many of those people did you pass that audition where they wanted to meet with you again? It's like dating. If you're going on a ton of first dates and nobody is interested in having a second date with you, we should probably look in the mirror and try to figure out what we're doing that's not making people want to meet with us a second time. But we are in a business just like dating, to where people don't have to say, hey, Dave, dude, you sucked. You didn't present yourself well. You showed up looking like absolute garbage. You knew nothing about the market. You didn't seem to know anything about why the market's doing what it's doing. You couldn't articulate strategy. You couldn't articulate or help me understand the market in a way that I understood. I don't have to call him and do that. I get to just ghost him the same way that people do in dating if we're not being conscious of how we're showing up and if we're not shining light on the areas that are going to feed a strong conversion. And I'm not just talking about online leads. People always assume that what I'm talking about here only applies to online leads, and it doesn't. It applies to all of your leads, all of your business, however you generate it. We need to shine light on the KPIs that feed a strong conversion rate. And those are conversations, appointments set, appointments met. Secondary appointment is one I strongly recommend you guys track. Offer submitted, pended, and closed. And the reason is we now have a pipeline. And I see Megan here. So if Megan is having a lot of conversations, but she's not setting any appointments, I can find the kink in the hose that's creating the bottleneck in my pipeline. Because then I can go talk to Megan and I can say, Megan, I know you're having a lot of conversations, but let's start working on the scripting and the objection handling and what we do to secure more appointments so we can go through those repetitions so that we can practice it, so that we can be more effective in our conversations with our potential clients. But if you're not tracking it, you have no idea if that kink in the hose is happening or not. You don't know where the bottleneck is occurring. And the beautiful thing about tracking is it shows you where you are weak. And the problem with tracking and the problem with human psychology is the moment that look, if you know you're gaining weight, you don't want to get on a scale because you already know. However, the minute you start forcing yourself to get on that scale every day and you see those numbers starting to climb, you immediately want to start making some changes that are going to start making that thing go in the right direction. And tracking gives you the ability to do it. But the problem is when the numbers aren't showing us something that we like or something that make us proud, we want to turn off the lights and pretend that our weaknesses and our shortcomings don't exist. But the reality of it is they do. And our businesses depend on us being able to identify them. So the real strength in this comes from when you are tracking, make sure that you keep the lights turned on. Don't stop tracking, because I'm going to use Megan now. If she's getting caught up in conversations but not setting appointments, we know where we need to coach to improve that pipeline so we can remove that bottleneck so she can progress people to actually setting up the appointments. Now, the setting up appointments KPI, one, if you're setting up appointments with people who are just trying to get you off the phone, then you're setting bad appointments. But really, the appointment set ratio really shouldn't be that bad. And there's not a whole lot of things you can do other than making sure that when you do set appointments with people, set it with people who are actually wanting to meet with you, do it with people who actually have an interest and a motivation. But two, this one simple little thing, this one little trick, and I'm a perfect example of this. I have blown off my last two. Today is my third haircut appointment. I've blown off 2. And the reason the new dude who cuts my hair, my barber, does not send me a calendar invite. So I don't show up because I forget. Sending your clients a calendar invite will increase the show up rate by 12 to 15%. If you're not using a calendar invite, you all have one. It's stupid not to. More people will show up. And if you get belly to belly with more people, do you think you will have the ability to close more clients? Of course. So why do we skip the most simple of steps and making sure that we're sending a calendar invite? And also, I strongly recommend, if you're going to use the calendar invites, opt into the text messaging option that also shoots them a text message to remind them of the appointment. I've never missed a haircut with my old barber because he sent me a calendar invite every single time. Okay, so people are showing up, and I've got Ryan Field here. So if I meet with Ryan and then I meet with Dave, so if I give Ryan 100 leads and I give Dave 100 leads, and Ryan has met 50% of the leads that I've given him, and Dave has met, let's say, 40%, we can typically go find the kink, improve the process to balance out those KPIs for people. And we do this all the time. But where it really changes and where you start seeing a huge discrepancy in agents' performance is how many of those people chose to meet Dave again, how many of those people chose to meet Ryan again. If Dave has a 13% secondary appointment rate and Ryan has a 52, who do you think's doing better? Who do you think's presenting better? Who do you think's facilitating the showing? Not like Vanna White walking around talking about, here's the bedroom and look at this beautiful master bath. And oh my God, look at the remodeled bathrooms. They know, they don't need you for that. But how you show up, not being the Vanna Whites of the world, actually showing value and being able to ask better questions and being able to take control of the showing and making sure that you understand that your goal on every single showing is to secure the second appointment on the first appointment. So if Ryan has that intention every single time, the same way that I tell you when you're having conversations, instead of setting a goal to have conversations, set a goal to set more appointments, because that intentionality is going to create more appointments. So if you change the intention of meeting with more clients to, I'm going to secure the second appointment on my first appointment, you're going to see that that KPI and your secondary appointment rate will dramatically improve. And you should be getting at bare minimum 35, 45 to 50% of the people you meet to want to meet with you for a second time. Now, if you have a low secondary appointment rate, now we have the ability to shine light on that weakness and say, okay, what is Dave doing that's making people not want to work with them or set the appointment? And it might not be that he's appalling them or doing anything bad, but if he just shows up looking like Vanna White, talking about, look at the beautiful view and look at this bathroom and oh my gosh, look at the kitchen. None of that stuff is going to make me want to work with somebody because he's doing nothing to magnetize himself. Like, what is every single buyer? Does anybody know what the 2 biggest fears of every single buyer, regardless of the market, is? Anybody? Overpaying or missing out on an opportunity. So if every single time you're not showing up to your appointment and helping people understand, 1, how you can protect them from overpaying, and 2, how your strategy is going to ensure that they don't miss out on opportunities, you're missing the boat. The entire point is we are supposed to be identifying pain points and we are supposed to be creating solutions. But if all you do is walk around on your audition during your first date and all you do is talk about yourself, or all you do is show a property like Vanna White, you're not identifying pain points and you're not explicitly articulating to the client how you are going to be the solution to that pain point. So if you know the 2 number 1 pain points are overpaying and 2, missing out on something, you should create some type of strategy and standard operating procedure as part of your process that's going to show people how you're going to stop them from doing it. Now, we do that by offering a strategy session. And we do it. Strategy sessions are by far the most underutilized tool in a realtor's tool chest, because the worst time to try to educate somebody and the worst time to try to explain the market to somebody is why they're trying to look at the freaking bathrooms. Like, we shouldn't be chasing these people around while they're looking at a home trying to show them how awesome we are either. There's like a fine line of treading, and you'll see it in agents' performance if you're tracking these KPIs. And we'll go into that process here in a minute. Now, if you're meeting with a lot of people, but you're not submitting enough offers for people, now we have the ability to identify why. Are we showing too many properties to too many clients that aren't what they're looking for? Are we failing to take control of the showings and take control of the process and help the client understand the costs of waiting? Are we doing a good job of easing their fears and their concerns with the marketplace and interest rates and affordability? Like, if you're tracking that KPI, you'll know, am I doing good or am I doing bad? And if you're doing bad, the good news is if you can be reflective enough and honest enough with ourselves and say, shit, I'm not doing a good job here. I need to practice and I need to find out how to do better. And then you go put that intentionality on improving that one specific metric, it improves. If you ever try to lose weight, the reason that they tell you to hop on a scale every single day is they want to see, is the process that you're following creating the result that you're trying to achieve? So if you're doing your exercise and you're doing your diet and your goal is to lose weight, and every time you get on the scale, you're gaining weight, are you going to keep doing the same stupid process? Or are you going to say, shit, I either got to start improving my diet or I got to start doing more output to burn more calories so I can lose more weight? The tracking is what enables this. If we do not track, you can't identify whether your process is working. So when you follow this process, you can then go change it and you can go make the tiny little adjustments that are going to improve each of these KPIs. Now, each of these KPIs feeds your end of year conversion rate. And the reason why this is so incredibly important is if you can increase your conversion by literally just 0.2%, you will see a 25% increase in income. 0.2%. So when we talk about the tiny little micro adjustments that you're going to make along the way, make them regardless of how small and minute they seem, because those tiny little adjustments fed with consistency for a long period of time with enough people and enough appointments is going to create substantially higher income as a result of the tiny little improvements in your conversions in each of these KPI metrics. So I bore people to death when it comes to KPIs and tracking, but I'm telling you, it is by far the most impactful thing you can do for your business, because I, fired my very first coach because she told me to track all this shit. I was 18 years old. I was a total idiot. I had no idea what she was talking about. I was like, I don't even know how to find clients, let alone how many conversations I have to have in order to close a house. And I thought she was crazy. But now looking back, I wish I would have been more clear on this earlier on, because I would have paid more attention to it and I dramatically would have fast-tracked my growth. Now, if we got enough people who are submitting offers, but they're not pending escrows, now I can go and identify the offer strategy. Now I can go look at how many contingencies are you applying to the agreement? What are the average timelines for each of those contingencies? What percentage of the ask price am I submitting in comparison to the average sales price? Because if homes on average, offers that are getting accepted are 103 to 103.5% over ask price, and I'm submitting offers that are 98% of ask price, I can go say, I need to improve my process. I need to write stronger offers. Then if you have people who are getting offers pended, and this is where we see a huge discrepancy between agents and skill set, is now how do you keep the train on the tracks? Because now Uncle Jim comes to the inspection and Uncle Jim's talking about what a piece of crap this house is. And now they go through and they get this inspection report that talks about how the water heater is nearing the end of its life. And oh my God, that's the end of the world. Like, how are we in handling the psychology of a buyer? How do we problem solve? How do we help get people off of the cliff and realize what's important and what's not? Like, all of this is a skill set. So the shitty thing about this is there's just so many pieces to making a great agent. And there's so many things that we have to do to truly be fantastic about at what we do. But it all starts with tracking so we can figure out, are we doing better or are we doing worse? And people do not like doing it because it does show us where we become weak. But if you can just keep that relentlessness of trying to improve each of these KPIs, it works. And the problem is we don't do it with enough consistency, and we don't do it for long enough to actually see how each of these changes can affect your bottom line. Because we do it for like 3 to 4 days and you don't get the immediate response. So it's easy to discount the value of these changes I'm going to recommend, but it's because we're not giving them enough time to do what they have to do. So we have to make sure doing the right things. It's like, again, I use exercise because it's something we all understand. If I got on the treadmill for 30 minutes and jumped off and looked in the mirror and go, shit, I still look the exact same. That shouldn't shock anybody. We know that. We don't stop running on the treadmill. We know if we do that activity for long enough with consistency, eventually the results will show up. And this is everything you do, it's a delayed return on investment of effort and output. So keep being super consistent with it. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about timeframes. Like right now, we are going to have people who are unbelievably fearful of the market. We're going to have people who are going to put their plans on hold. You're going to have people who tell you that they want to wait until November or December or January, February. We need to make sure that we have people organized in our pipeline in a way that's going to help us communicate and nurture them in a way that's going to keep us top of mind. So 0 to 30 days, we have follow-up A's, B's, C's, and D's. We can apply a follow-up cadence to each of these. So a follow-up A is 0 to 30. We follow up with those people at least 3 times per week. A follow-up B, 31 to 90 days. We follow up with them at least 1 time per week. Follow-up C, 1 time per month. Follow-up D, we follow up with every 60 days. Now, this is a super simplistic way of doing this. We personally, and the system's only available for Sierra Interactive users. So if you don't use Sierra Interactive, you can't use it. GGMS is by far the best lead conversion software you can use. It is behavioral-based follow-up as opposed to cadence-based follow-up. Instead of you having to shoot in the dark at the target and hoping that you're going to check in with these people at the perfect time, GGMS identifies people showing in buyer and seller behavior. It will give you the ability to tell you who you need to prioritize first and pay your time and attention to. It's a fantastic system. If you don't have Sierra, sorry, it's not available. If you do, GGMS is an absolute game changer for this. The entire point is just making sure, and there still is a place for cadence-based follow-up. There is, because people aren't always going to show the behaviors on your sites or your retarget marketing, but we just have to make sure that we're staying in flow with people. Because I'm going to use Megan. Megan, have you ever had a client tell you they're putting their plans on hold? And have you ever had them say, hey, I'm going to wait until after the year, you follow up with them in November and they already bought a house? Yes or no?
Hurts, yes.
Happens to all of us. It's going to happen to all of you if it hasn't already. It does happen. And the problem is we take everybody's objections and everybody's timelines as absolute truth, and we can't. Like I have a rule, if they tell me that they're 6 months out, I'm going to follow up with them as if they're 3 months out. If they tell me that they're a year out, I'm going to put it like they're out 7 to 8 months out. Like always try to move it up at least 3 months because it happens all the time. And our entire job is to make sure that we're staying in flow with people. That's our job, is just to make sure we're following up in a way that's not going to annoy people, that's providing value. And this is what's annoying because every coach gets on stage and they're like, you got to provide more value. What does that even freaking mean? It's not me calling you in August when you told me you want to buy in next March. Me saying, hey, just want to check in with you. I know we were waiting until March, but just wanted to see if how your real estate search was going. And like we follow up in just stupid ways that aren't effective in any way, shape, or form. And it's easy to provide more value because what is everybody worried about right now? Everybody's wondering, is the market going to crash? Everybody's worried about interest rates. So instead of following up with dumb, stupid shit that literally is not going to get anybody to want to use you, provide articles from Keeping Current Matters, provide articles from your local economists. We have in Southern California, Stephen Thomas, find articles that are written on Inman, like find articles, but you have to take amazing notes. Like when you're talking to Dave, the best thing in the world Dave could do when he's talking to me is know why I'm moving, identify my motivation, understand my relationship with my daughter, and understanding all this stuff, what I'm fearful of. Like my biggest issue in Arizona, I don't know what's good. I don't know what's bad. I don't know anything about the areas. So if Dave all of a sudden starts sending me, hey man, in Scottsdale, hey, I know you're going to come into town just to check out the areas, and I don't want to meet with Dave yet because I'm not going to waste his time. But knowing that I'm coming into Scottsdale, like a great value-based follow-up is showing me the specific areas of Scottsdale that I should go take a look at, showing me why I need to avoid parts of Mesa or parts of Tempe or parts of Phoenix, like helping me and showing me different areas. And I know people are like, well, that's steering. Okay, don't do that part then if you don't want to. But helping me better understand what's happening in those areas, giving me restaurant selections. Like I reach out to Dave and so far, I haven't talked to him about houses yet, but I do call him and say, hey, where should I go eat? What should my daughter and I go do? Because those are the type of things I'm trying to figure out. And he can be the knowledge broker for me on that. So instead of doing the dumb shit of, hey, checking in to see how your home search is going, identify and show me how the areas that I should be looking. If I'm somebody who's fearful of interest rates, if I'm somebody who is fearful of the market crashing, you should tag me and identify me in your CRM as somebody who's fearful. Because in that way, you know, whenever a cool article comes out about how the strength of the market is there and how we can articulate to somebody, like, how many of your clients are able to tell you why the market's not falling? None. 90% of real estate agents can't tell me why the real estate market is not crashing. Like when people are like, well, interest rates so high and affordability is out of whack, 73% of somebody's income would have to be used. Like, how the hell are we not seeing values drop? Well, if you go to Disneyland, and if you've ever been there before, and you see the lines wrapped around the block, we know that it's going to be a shitty experience in Disneyland. So people like to go Wednesday because there's half the amount of people who are going into that park. However, if on Wednesday, when half the attendees are there, they shut down half of the amusement park, we're still going to have that same shoulder to shoulder waiting experience that we all hate about Disneyland. We have a huge lack of inventory. We have a huge problem with sellers not being able to leave the home that they're in because the home that they want to buy is so out of reach from where they need that there's just no inventory, and we're decimated right now. So Dave, we need to be able to articulate that to people, and most people simply can't. Honestly, I lost track of why I even went on a tangent and totally forgot where I was anyway. The value-based follow-ups. So then when we provide articles, like saying, hey, Dave, I know you were scared. I know you've been concerned about the market. I was reading this article and it reminded me of my conversation. Take a look. I think you'll find a lot of value in this, or a lot of insightful information in this. It's a value-based deposit that's simply keeping you top of mind in a way that's not annoying. Because if Ryan follows up with me when I'm not moving until March with, hey, Colton, how you doing? Just want to check in and see how things are going with the home search. You know, if you need me, I'm always available for you. Like, he's not a bad guy. He's not being mean. He's not being a bad agent. However, he sure as shit isn't being a good one. He isn't doing anything to add value to this interim that I'm at. Like, he's not doing anything to make this experience more informed for me, to educate me more. So as both of these guys continue to follow up with me over the next 6 months, who am I going to be more impressed by? Dave, who's sending me market data and helping educate me? Because what we need to do is, like, our entire job when somebody's fearful, fear is like helium in a balloon. And I've used a super cheesy analogy. Our job is to tie our string around that balloon as tight as we possibly can. Let it be fearful. Let them be fearful, because you will never, ever in your life be able to battle somebody's emotion with your logic. I have a 16-year-old daughter now. For the first time ever, she got pissed at me yesterday. I have never heard my daughter be mad at me. She was being very sensitive. She is definitely starting to go through these changes. And everything I said was just mean, or everything I said, it was just like, why are you being rude? And I honestly was shocked. I was like, sweetie, I'm not being rude. You're being sensitive. And oh my God, was that the worst thing to say? I'm not being, and I fucked up because I know not to do this. The first minute that any of you go to your spouse and say, hey, baby, you got to chill out. Like, you are way overreacting. How does that work out for any of us? Horribly. But if I do what I ended up doing, and I let my daughter calm down, and I texted her the next day and said, I come in peace. Can I come see you? And she laughs and says, yes. I've now allowed that frustration and that emotion to start to dissipate. And now we can have a logical conversation. Now I was able to explain my position and why I was frustrated. I was able to explain what I did wrong. And we are now able to have like a really reasonable conversation. But when we try to force that conversation at the moment that they're the most frustrated and emotional, it's going to fall on deaf ears every single time. So when somebody starts talking about they're fearful of the market, and the first thing you do is battle them and tell them that they're wrong and you're an idiot, and look at what all the economists are saying, and look at what the market trends are saying. And again, you may not be wrong. However, the approach is, when you try to battle somebody's emotion with your logic, you will fail every single time. So instead, let them feel what they feel, because just like helium in a balloon, fear eventually dissipates, and that balloon and that tension on that string will start to become less, and that fear will slowly start to be released. And the agent who's effective, and the agent who doesn't do what I did with my daughter yesterday and cut that string, it's gone forever. Like, if you do that to a client and a buyer who's fearful of the market, and you immediately try to battle them with all your stats and your graphs, that opportunity is gone. However, if you're that agent that goes, cool, I'm going to wrap my string around this, I'm going to stay in flow with this person consistently enough so I can stay top of mind, so I can educate them with that data and those articles slowly, because this shift doesn't happen overnight. Fear doesn't dissipate overnight. So if we allow people to feel what they feel, you keep your string attached. As that fear starts to dissipate and as it becomes more, as they become more confident in the direction of the market, you'll be the genius that stayed in touch and in contact with them in a valuable way that allowed that balloon to land back in your possession. So you're going to be the person that they use when that time comes. Like, we have to chill on our approach on this, because I don't care how tactful any of us are, we will never get somebody who does not want to buy a house today to buy a house today. Our job is to identify who the motivated are, what their potential timeframes would be, make sure that we stay in flow with them consistently enough and long enough to be the person who has earned the privilege of being the agent that they want to use. But we do that by really providing value. And value in this particular case are going to be those educational articles that are helping me change my position by information and by education and by brief 60-second breakdowns of what's happening in the market, your ability to articulate why things aren't plummeting the way that people think they are. I hope that's a little bit helpful when it comes to like adding value. If it's somebody who like, well, shit, there's just no inventory, you better have an inventory search team. Even if you don't freaking have one, you better have a buyer concierge service, and you have a team of dedicated people who specifically do outreach in the communities of interest and reach out to the people who own homes like the one you're looking for, so that otherwise, without me, we create inventory that's off market, so you don't have to compete against the rest of the market. And without me, you're not going to get that opportunity. Like, that needs to be built into your presentation, because that is going to be something that magnetizes. Do all of you have off-market inventory right now? The answer is 100% yes. Expired listings, canceled listings, for sale by owners, you got shit that they can't see. Go find out what they're interested in, and then go put an effort into trying to create that relationship so that you can connect that buyer and that seller. Again, are those efforts very successful at a high rate? Not at all. However, if you call it something like my buyer concierge service, it'll mean something. So we have to be intentional about how we are presenting the service and the value that you will provide. And it's not, I'm going to send you properties and I'm going to give you access to the MLS because it's a direct feed. You're not going to do any of that shit. It's the off-market stuff, because people love off markets. How often do we hear that from people? Are you the listing agent? Why do they think they want the listing agent? And then you hear people handle that objection in the dumbest way. No, did you not? And some of you guys aren't allowed to do this in your state. We are. But like, did you know that the listing agent's job is to represent the buyer's, the listing's best, the seller's best interest, and my job is to represent? They don't care. They know why they were calling the listing agent. They knew that they were going to make more money, which is going to dramatically increase the likelihood of getting their offer accepted. They knew that. That's why they called. That's the benefit for them. So instead of doing dumb shit, we got to start magnetizing ourselves by showing them what we are going to be able to provide, that without you, they're not going to have these opportunities. So I'm going to show you guys this, something that you got to keep in mind. You have to have realistic expectations of your leads. Nearly half of your lead conversion will come from leads that are more than 6 months old. And most of us do not have follow-up and nurturing campaigns that are going to convert leads that are 6 months old. We need to make sure that we are using a follow-up cadence and we are staying top of mind with people in a way that's going to capture those leads that are 6+ months out, because that is where your return on investment comes in. That, if you're paying for leads, online leads, whatever it may be, we need to have an amazing opportunity to be able to nurture those people long enough so that we can be the agents that they think of. GGMS, for those of you who are on it, it is dope because it stays in front of them 24/7. When they show the slightest flicker of hope, it's going to notify you. You're going to keep on top of them. Like, it's amazing for just making sure that it's constantly stirring up your pipeline to make sure that those opportunities are rising to the top. This is going to be how you can revitalize some life back into your database. So these little prompts here are what I want you to use to be able to bring some life back. Hey, it's been a little while since we last connected. I'm trying to update my notes to see if you ever end up finding a home, or are you still looking? I don't want my follow-up. This one right here, number 2, gets me the highest response that I get. Hey, I don't want my follow-up to become a nuisance. Are you still considering making a move? If not, I completely understand. I simply want to make sure I don't drop the ball if you're still interested. So a lot of us don't need more leads. You just got to go convert half the ones that we failed to convert in the past. Like, if you can go back to your entire database and you send these ghosting texts that we use, the entire point is to get people to respond. And they'll say, yes, I already bought a house. That's dope, because now I can go target them with homeowner type stuff that's going to get them to engage with homeowner type stuff like HomeBot, or GGMS has something that will continue to track them. We use a system called Fellow, which is going to continue to track, which is absolutely incredible. It'll keep them engaged with, it's like HomeBot on steroids, but it will literally just keep them engaged, because now that can be a future seller for you. Or they say, no, I put my plans on hold. Totally get it, Megan. Help me better understand, what had you putting your plans on hold? And then they give you whatever objection they give you. But they give you whatever objection that they're going to give you. And there's 3 basic pivots that my lead conversion coach, Robbie T, taught us, and they work beautifully. There's 3 basic pivots that are going to keep you engaged in the conversation. Because one, our entire job is to make sure that we are showing up in a way and we are asking questions that goes, okay, is Megan worth paying my time and attention to? Because what we do is we try to turn every single lead into a closing. And if you try to turn all your shit into gold in the process, you're going to turn your gold into shit, because you have to identify the people who are worthy of your time. And the best lead converters in the world with the best leads ever, if I give 100 of them, the best lead converters in the world are going to get told to fuck off 90 times. Or they're going to get ghosted, or they're going to be flakes, or they're going to be fake, whatever it is, 90 times. Your job is to ask questions to identify those 10. So when Megan says to put my plans on hold, or no, I'm waiting until this, or no, I'm doing, whatever it is, the pivot's the same. Totally understand, Megan. What had you looking at homes in the first place? And the reason for this is we're pivoting away from what they're fearful of, and we're pivoting towards what they were going towards. We want to pivot away from what they're running from into what they're running towards. So when they say, well, you know, we're kind of on top of ourselves right now, we're in a rental and our lease is coming up, whatever the billion reasons are, it doesn't change the questions. Totally understand. If I were able to find you X, Y, and Z, whatever they just said, if I were able to find you X, Y, Z, the numbers made sense and it was exactly what you were looking for, would you be interested in taking a look at that opportunity, or would you want to miss out on it? Because if they say, no, absolutely not, I'm going to miss out on it. Okay, this person's becoming less of somebody that I should be paying attention to, but there's still hope. And there's one more pivot that I always add to this, regardless of what they say. And you have to understand this pivot, you're going to be told, no, I'd miss out on that opportunity a lot more than you're going to get told, yeah, I'd take a look. But if they do say, I'd take a look, you better be reorganizing them and putting them in a category in your CRM that's going to get more time and attention and bandwidth to ensure you're staying in flow with them in a way that is going to earn you their business. Because what we do is when these people want to go, like when we identify you, now I have to go put a lot more time and attention into it. And what we as realtors are so guilty of is we're looking for efficient when we are not in a market for efficient. We are in a market for effective. Like I have people loading up a bunch of names into a dialer, bat themselves on the back because they made 300 phone calls. Yeah, but you talk to 3 people. Dialers are very efficient. They're not effective. War dialing is effective. Because I'm going to call Megan once, she's not going to answer. I'm going to immediately call again. And Megan's going to look at her phone this time with a little bit more curiosity. She might ignore it. Some people will pick that up, which means you had another conversation. But maybe she hangs up on me again, or she ignores it. You call me a 3rd time. Right now, if my best friend, because he's done this to me while I was on a webinar and I did answer, he called me once, didn't answer, called me twice, didn't answer, called me a 3rd time. Now I was terrified. I thought somebody died. So I stopped on a webinar and I go, hey, dude, is everything okay? What's up, dude? And he just started yelling. I'm like, you bastard. And I hung up. However, it was that 3rd call that prompted the curiosity. And I challenge you to go do this, run this split test. Go do an hour in your dialer that calls 1 time and says potential spam, see how many people you talk to, and then go through and call war dial 3 times and see how many people you talk to there. You might dial less numbers, but if you're talking to more people and having more meaningful conversation, you need to start focusing on effective versus efficient. So the drip campaigns that you guys are sending to buyers, they're wildly ineffective. Dave is sending me stuff. Honestly, I'm not even looking anymore because I look at Zillow and I look at realtor.com because they're just easier to navigate. He's got a great website. So start texting people addresses, start texting them the opportunities. But you need to be more creative on that, because do people like clicking links from people that they don't know? No, they don't. So we need to, 1, text people. How is Dave going to text me if I'm a stranger and get me to click his link? Hey, Colton, I wanted to keep you up to date. I know we're looking in Phoenix. I know you're not moving until March. Like, he's going to get super specific for what we discuss. He's like, there's a house over in Scottsdale that just came available. It's got the 4th bedroom. It's a single story. It's not in an HOA, so you can still Airbnb it. Like, he's going to be super specific and dangle a really incentivizing carrot. And I'm going to bite into that because now that's what I'm looking for. So instead of sending your drip campaigns and your emails that aren't being opened, it takes more time. It's not efficient, but it's far more effective. And right now, we need to be effective. We need to utilize methods that are going to get us in front of more people, because now it's no longer shooting fish in a barrel. The fish are gone. You got to know how to find them. You got to know how to catch them. You got to know how to lure them in. You got to know how to be patient enough when that fish and you're trying to reel it in, it's trying to zig left. You got to let it zig left. And then when it wants to zig right, you got to let it zig right. And you slowly start reeling it in. You slowly start diffusing that fear with the education so that the really good fishermen will get that thing into the boat. But the rest of us, we're just breaking the line because we don't know how to be good at what we're doing right now. We have to be more effective. It's going to take more time. There's no easy button. Fuck the easy button. The people looking for the easy button are the 60,000 agents that are gone. Now, to handle the objection of, I'm going to wait, any timeline objection. I don't care if it's, I'm going to wait until spring. I'm going to wait until 2025. I'm going to wait until whatever the time frame is, the pivots are going to be the exact same. So if I tell Dave that, Dave, I'm going to wait until after the new year, Dave's going to say, I totally understand. Help me better understand what's so important about after the new year. I'm going to shut up and I'm not going to say another word, because when you start deviating from the pivots, people start going, or they immediately start trying to just say what you're supposed to say the pivot, and then don't say another word and sit in silence. And don't be scared of silence. I will allow it to go silent until they respond. I will not speak. I go, well, we got a vacation plan for Thanksgiving. And then I'm going to be going out to Bali for Christmas with my family. So now he knows what's so important. And then he goes, okay, totally makes sense. When you say that you're waiting until after the new year, is that when you're wanting to be in your home, or is that when you're wanting to restart your search? Because a lot of people will say, well, yeah, we're waiting until summertime. You call them in June. They're like, hey, I just bought my house. I'm already in. We want to identify what that time frame is and also open it up for more opportunities for better discussion. And so at the end of that, if I say, no, dude, honestly, I want to start my search after the new year. And Dave's going to say, gotcha. Well, I got to ask, if I ended up finding the perfect opportunity, it checked all the right boxes and the money made sense, would you be interested in taking a look at that opportunity, or would you want to miss out on it? Again, we're just peeling the onion back so we can identify the motivated and put all of our time and attention on the people who say, yeah, I mean, cool, I would look at it if it was available. I can't make any promises. But again, I'm going to go put that person in a different box. It's going to get more bandwidth. It's going to get more attention. That's who I'm going to pay attention to. But we have to ask questions that are going to peel the layers back to show people's real motivation. So you do everything right. You handle objections the right way. You nurtured, you stay top of mind, you stayed in flow with people. For the love of God, please, please do not show up with your black and white MLS sheets, unprepared, with absolutely nothing to show this person. Like, it is unacceptable for when somebody asks you, hey, what do you think the values are? For you to go, let me go ahead and get back to the office and I'll pull up some. It's like the most common answer that agents get. Did you not know you had an appointment? Could you have not have taken 15 freaking minutes to show up prepared, know what the comps are, which is also going to help you know what other available inventory is there, which is also going to help you tentatively set appointments for that second appointment in case they want to go on it. Like, there are layers to being a great agent, and there's layers to this process. But right now we are in a market where I think we can all agree, based on that graph I showed you of how few sales are there, that it's worth 30 minutes of your time to show up right, to have the information readily available, to have the comps already prepared, so you can create a wow moment that instead of having to say, hey, I'll pull it up and get back to you, you can just say, hey, yeah, I actually prepared this. We have what's called a high note, and we already have the comps. I have our Stephen Thomas local economist report. I have the school districts pulled up, because anytime they ask a question, I want to make sure that my agents have the answer, because that creates a wow moment. It shows how prepared you were. Now, before your appointment, this is going to be the most cheesy thing that none of you are going to want to do, but I promise you it is going to create the best impact on your overall appointment. Our job is to build rapport with people. The problem is so many of these people are in such a rush to go take a look at a house that they don't slow down. We don't have the opportunity to build rapport. We didn't have the opportunity to ask great questions. So before every single showing, I want you to send this text message, and you have to promise me you will do it, because my agents who do crush it is, hey, I got into the area a little bit early. I'm going to stop and grab us a coffee. What can I get you? Not, can I get you anything? If you say, can I get you anything? I could be dying of hydration. And if I walk into Dave's house and he offers me a bottle of water, for some dumb reason, my mom always taught me to say no and be polite. Like people are polite. We don't like it when people buy us stuff. But when you change it and you say, hey, I'm going to stop and grab us a coffee. What can I get you? People actually respond. Now you're going to have maybe only 30% of people opt in to the coffee invite. However, the deposit has been made. That appreciation is there because you offered something nice. So just because they don't initially accept it doesn't mean that the deposit wasn't received and they felt good about it. We like to do things for people who do things for us. So, which is why I tell my agents, even if they say no to the coffee, show up with a cold bottle of water. We're going into summer. Dave, show up with a freaking igloo in Arizona because it's such a hellhole. But just show up with a cold bottle of water, hand it to them. It's hard to be mean to somebody who just did something nice for you. So when you do that, when we show a property, and sorry guys, I'm really trying to haul ass through this. When we show a property and you meet them, don't be the helicopter parent. Don't be the person who chases them around the house like a little creep, asking them a bunch of questions. Hey guys, I'm not a helicopter parent. Go ahead and take a look around. I'll be within an earshot's distance. If you have any questions, I'll be within an earshot's distance. But when we're done, meet me back in the kitchen so we can discuss what you loved and hated about the home. While you're taking a look around, I'm going to be taking note of things that we might need to bring to the inspector's attention. We spend 90% of our time trying to talk about why this house is so great. Why is it that they always want to bring their uncle or their grandpa or their dad or their mom? Like, why is it that they're always trying to bring somebody? Because they don't trust you. They don't like you. You're a salesperson. All you try to do is sell them something. So why don't you show up the same way that dad would? Hey guys, do you see that dry rot? This place definitely has some termite issue. We're going to want to bring a termite inspector out here to further evaluate. Do you see those 3 layers of shingles on the roof? That's typically signs of deferred maintenance, and there could be a big ticket repair here coming up. We would want to have the roofer come take a look at this. Do you see that old busted ass AC unit that literally is falling off of the AC pad? Like when you start calling out the things that should make them like not fearful, but when you start trying to protect them, you will build trust. You'll start building rapport, and they will actually want to use you. Show up like dad would, and they're going to trust you. When you see that huge crack in the foundation and you hear agents, oh, it's probably just typical sliding and settling. What we want to look for, like when I can see that I can put a quarter through a crack, hey, anything that I can put a quarter through, it's typically indicative of some foundational issues that we're going to want to bring a soils expert out here to further evaluate. When you start doing that stuff every single time, they will start trusting you and they will want to use you, and you will magnetize yourself to them. So because now they don't need daddy, they've got an actual expert who's going to try to protect them. So you get through the showing, you take notes of things, you sit down, I'm going to haul ass through this. You're going to ask them 3 questions. Dave, on a scale 1 to 10, how close is this to what you were looking for? Not, did you like it? It's the difference, not the same. On a scale of 1 to 10, how close is this to what you're looking for? It's like a 6. Got it. So this one's not the home for you. Help me better understand, what would it take to make this a 10? Because now you're forcing them to answer questions in a way that's polite. They don't want to say it sucks, because when you say, did you like it? They go, yeah, it was good. It was cool, but we're going to think about it and we'll get back to you. And then they get in the minivan, they take off, you never talk to them again. So our entire goal is to set the second appointment on the first appointment. So it's like a 6, got it. Well, we really needed a 4th bedroom, and we really are hoping for a pool or whatever it is. If I go to Arizona, by the way, Dave, I will not have a pool. And I say, well, this one doesn't have a pool. Okay, cool. Now we've got that. We've got our notes. So we've got all the good notes that we need to follow up with better precision in the future. And you go, hey, Dave, I'm not sure if this house is still available, but I showed it to another set of clients like for last weekend, whatever you want to say. Showed it to them last weekend. Super similar. It's got the bedroom. It's got a pool. It's an extra like 20, 25 grand. But if that home's still available, would you be interested in taking a look at it? They may say no, but now you've asked for a second appointment and you've used something that they would actually potentially be interested in, a fucking house. Or if they still say no to that, and they're talking about inventory issues and affordability issues, and they're talking about all these things that they're fearful of, you tell a great story as to how, like your strategy sessions, and I make it clear. We're not going to talk about paint color. We're not going to talk about square footage. We're not going to talk about areas. I'm going to sit you down and show you the strategy and the offer strategy that my clients are using that are helping them secure the winning bid without being the highest bidder. Overpaying. We're addressing the overpaying concern that they have. But in order to do this, you got to know how to play chess with the contract. And the worst time ever for me to articulate strategy is when you're emotionally tied to a property and about to put pen to paper. So I want to slow you down in the front end so I can show you the strategy that we're going to use, because all these tactics are like tools in a tool chest. We don't got to use all of them at once. Some properties you want to use some you want to use others. Some you want to throw the whole fucking tool chest at to make sure that this is the house you get. But it's my job to make sure you know how to use these tactics and how we can help you secure a home for less money in a shorter amount of time. When would you have 15 to 20 minutes to sit down for a strategy session? Again, I'm asking for a second appointment if the house thing didn't work. So we're asking twice for the second appointment, and you'll do this once or twice and it might not work once or twice. But the entire goal is to get at least 10, 15, 20% of the people on that first appointment to schedule the second appointment with you, but you have to do it every single time without fail. All right. I wanted to make sure I stopped on time. I literally never do. This is the closest I've ever been. So if you guys got to click off, I want to be respectful of your time. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'll kind of hang out here, but for the rest of you, thank you so much for being on here.